Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the Island Guys podcast. In this episode, we will continue our interview series, but it's not going to be anyone new. We're bringing back an old friend, Coach George Mahoney. Coach, what's up?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me on again. I love it.
Yeah, people loved you the last time, and you have so much information on just everything, football, health, everything. So we got to probably have you on another couple times, figure out something to talk about.
Awesome. And just some feedback for you guys. I loved your podcast with the Coastal Carolina guys. I love the Billy Hench podcast. That might be my two favorites. So great work. Keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that, especially the Billy one. Billy one was cool. And then other guy, Rob, he's with us too. What's up, man?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, you're just
anytime soon.
So we bring on Coach here, talk about basically analytics in football. So, Coach, what you were at what school in
over this past season because of the coronavirus? There was no football in New York City during the fall season, so I was slated to be coaching at Tottenville High School, but they had no season, so I ended up going over with my mentor at Mater Dei Prep in New Jersey. So they were actually done with football camp when he had called me up, and he has a lot of contacts over in the NFL, specifically with both the Ravens and the Dolphins. And he become increasingly more interested in data analytics. And he said, look, I know you're interested in this stuff. What's your idea of coming here and doing this for us and being our in-game coach, using an analytics tool and really helping us make decisions on going for it on fourth down or punting? That was really his big thing. He knew John Harbaugh pretty well. They had a lot of conversations about why the Ravens were going for it on fourth down so much, especially last year. And he wanted to see if it would give him an edge in his upcoming season.
Nice. So when you talk about that analytic tool, what exactly is the tool, and what type of info did it really give you?
It's pretty cool. So I bring a tablet to the game. I got it from Micro Sky. If you guys know Don Martell from St. Joseph by the Sea, he hooked me up with a nice stylus thing that I could bring right into the booth. And what this tool does is you input before the game everything that you want to input, and it's all about relativity, right? Like how good is the other team's pass defense versus your pass offense? How good is your kicker versus their kicker? How many plays do you run a game? And what the tool does on every single play is it tells you your win probability based on what you may do. So if you're going to pass the ball, it's this win probability. If you're going to run the ball, it's this win probability. If you're going to punt, it's this win probability. It tells you based on all the hundreds of thousands of games it has in the system, what other teams have, if they've won or lost, and the probability of it based on the next move that you're going to make. So it's really like a predictive analytics. It's predicting what's going to happen versus, when you guys had played football, things that we were trying to do was it's prescriptive analytics. It's prescribing for you what to do. Okay, you should run in this situation. You should go for two in this situation. Versus with us, we were trying to predict to you guys what was going to happen. Hey, on 3rd and 8 from the right hash, they're probably going to run the ball to this sideline on this yard line. That's we're trying to predict it. This thing is prescribing you things to do. So what I would do in the booth is I would tell coach, hey, I wouldn't give him the probabilities. It's just too much math during a game. But if it was fourth down, I would say, hey, we should go for it because we're more likely to win in this scenario than if we punted it.
Wow, that's crazy. But so this tool, like what you're saying, like it gives you the probability of the games and stuff. What out of what league is it? Is it like all foot, like NFL? Is it and like college? Like where is the pool of those games come in?
That's a great question. So they have it for every different level. There's a high school level, a college level, and an NFL level. So for us, it was every high school game that they had gotten data for across the country. Now, the way it works is when our game is over, we give them our data. So now they basically feeding themselves with this information. So every game they record, they get more data. And when the game is over, they give us a post-game report telling us, here's all the fourth down calls you blew. Here's the fourth down calls you did great on. And then they tell you every play if your winning percentage goes up or down. So that was really like the real big eye opener for me. It wasn't just about making calls in the game. It was learning little secrets about the game based on win probability. Like, oh my God, that timeout that we called right there because we wanted to check our play, it cost us 5% win probability. How did that happen? So you start asking yourself a bunch of questions of the how and the why based on win probability going up and down. Now, I guess the trick is, do you believe this stuff? And if you do believe it, what do you even do about it? How do you change your behaviors based on the data that you're getting? But back to your original question, that's where the win probabilities were coming from. Now, to be fair, if you're a football coach in the heat of battle, you don't want to hear some nerd in the booth going, hey, man, we have a 3.6% win probability. That's higher if we punt than if we go for it. Nobody cares, right? You got to keep it simple, and you have to communicate in about 2 seconds. So the way we'd work it is it would actually tell you on first down, okay, if you get to 4th and 3, go. So I'm telling the offensive coordinator on first down, hey, if it's 4th and 3, we're going. So if we get to 3rd and 7, don't go for 7, go for 4. Let's get to 4th and 3, and then we'll go. Now, for people that aren't familiar with football coaching, the traditional way is let's just punt on 4th down unless we can kick a field goal. The next progressive way is, hey, if we get inside their 40-yard line, then let's have this conversation again. And I believe the next level is this. Like the next level is, hey, let's use data to make these conversations a lot easier to have, so we're not screaming at each other during a game.
Yeah, exactly. Like what you said, like coach doesn't want to hear some, nerd up in the booth. So how exactly do you sell that tool to the coaches? Like,
it's so first of all, I'll give you guys some good life advice. You're probably never going to win an argument in your life with data because nobody cares, right? We think we're logical human beings and rational, but we're not. So the best way to do this is with stories and with letting people trip over the truth themselves. Now, if people don't believe at all, you're never going to convince them. Like if you're just a complete and total skeptic, you might as well just hang up on this podcast right now and listen to the Billy Hench one about 15 times. It's an awesome podcast. But if you're kind of on the fence, I think we can turn you. So the head coach, he was kind of on the fence. He wanted to do this. So he was the door that opened up that door for me to get in with the program. But even he needed to be sold on. So how'd I sell him? He had showed me video of his game, his state championship game the year before that. I believe they played at Rutgers and they lost. I think it was like 27-24. I go through the film and I identify 5 plays that increase their win probability, let's say by 15 to 20%. And I show him the plays on film. So I'm not just telling him, hey, you blew the game and here's the number. We're walking through the game together, right? And when I say blew the game, the guy made calls that I would have made. He's a great football coach. He made the same calls I would have made. One call was like, hey, I'm going to punt the ball, pin them at their 2-yard line. They're going to go 3 and out. We've been stopping them all day. They'll punt the ball back to us. We kick a field goal. We win the state championship, which is exactly what he did. Except the win probability didn't say to do that. It said, go for it, right? So I'm telling him this story as we're going. And now he's like, I never would have thought that this was the right thing to do. Let's experiment. So then what I was doing with the staff, now I don't know these guys. I only knew the head coach. I never met these guys in my life. They don't know who I am. They just see some nerd with a computer showing up to practice and looking over their shoulders, right? So what I did was I let things happen during a game. And then I would use that report and say, hey, coach, just so you know, when we jumped off sides on this play, we lost 15% win probability. So when we get to practice next week, we have to change. We can't just say line up and do it again. We got to lose our minds if a guy jumps off sides. We have to act like it's the end of the world when he jumps off sides. If a guy's holding, offensive coaches love holding during practice, right? It gives them a couple of extra yards, right? Coach Hench, they're all about it. But if you hold, you're not going to score. So now we really need to be all over that stuff during practice. We cannot let it slide. So really the way you make it, how you sell it is you let them trip over the truth, let them experience it, and then you integrate it. They're not going to listen to some nerd just coming in off the street.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly. But Rob, I know you got a question. You want to throw
out? So before the tool, how involved was analytics in football, and did people really use it?
So Rob, I'll take you through our world because I think it's a little more relatable. Things that I would do with you, I'll take you before me, right? So there's a lot of coaches that get data analytics reports for what happened. All right, this is what happened in the game. And then they're trying to predict the future based on the data. And for me, I always struggle with that because I always felt like an offense can do whatever they want to do. And in the beginning of my career, I was really into that. Like, hey, they line up in this formation at this yard line, they're running this play. And I remember the day we had prepared for Kellenberg. It was way before your guys' time. It was like the Joe Igneri days, the Joe Castellano days. They were running a wishbone offense. We prepared the whole week for them, wishbone offense, and they come out in the game and they run empty spread offense. And we were not prepared for it. And it stuck with me that these guys can do whatever we want. A few years later, or maybe it's the next year, we're playing more. They're running a triple option offense. They come to play us and boom, they're in spread. So at that point, it was like, how do we take this data and how involved can this data be in our preparation? So what I did with your team, Rob, was we really tried to simplify things. So what I did was when I watched their film, I looked at, hey, which 5 or 6 plays do they run 80% of the time? And which 5 or 6 plays gain 80% of their yards using the Pareto principle. So we would narrow it down to you guys and say, stop these 5 plays or stop these 10 plays, whatever we're going to do, and make them play a game they don't want to play. So that's how we were using data analytics when I was coaching you guys at C. I then went after that to the other end of the spectrum where I had taken data like we have now, but just made blanket statements like, we're never punting, we're always onside kicking, like things like that. We're always going for 2. There was no gray area. It was just black and white. Now it simplified a lot of things, but it also caused a lot of controversy. And people had a hard time believing the data that I pulled was right, or anyone pulled was right, and said, who are you to say this? Now with this tool, the tool does help you coach with confidence, because now here's hundreds of thousands of drives that have been compiled. And maybe I made the right call to go for it on 4th and 2, but maybe we didn't get it. It doesn't say you're going to get it 100% of the time. It just says that you're more likely to win if you go for it on 4th and 2 in this situation. So I don't have to spend the rest of the game kicking myself because we didn't get it on 4th and 2, or have our offensive coordinator doubting his life and being more conservative for the rest of the game because he didn't call it on 4th and 2 at that point. So that's really been the evolution, and this tool just really gives you the confidence. It's called Edge Varsity, by the way, to give them the proper respect they deserve. If you guys are watching NFL on the weekends and they're telling you win probabilities on Fox, it's them. They're sitting in the booth with Troy Aikman, and Troy would say, hey, what's the win probability if they go for a 4th down right now? And these guys are popping out the data for them right in that spot.
Oh, it's like that Christian McCaffrey commercial when he's jumping over the thing, and it's like, what's that?
Yeah, a little different, right? Yeah, so those analytics are talking about like analytics on a play, but yeah, it's the same type of concept. And the difference between the NFL, high school, and college is that college and the NFL cannot use a digital tool during the game. They can't. High school can. So college, some colleges and NFL teams have the tool that I'm using, except they can't bring it to the game. They have to actually print stuff out on paper and look it up, like flip through a binder during a game, where I have the beauty of the tool right in front of me.
Wow, yeah, I guess it's the NFL and college. They make them enough money to do that a little bit. But now my next question has to do like, how does it, how you said like football's changed with the analytics stuff. How did you get introduced to the tool, or how did like basically football itself, like how does that work? Like,
I'll speak for me and the tool. So I'm on a couple of, I follow some football blogs, and I'd always been big on going for it on 4th. I should say always, the last 5 or 6 years going for it on 4th down. And this email came out from a clinic saying, hey, this professional team didn't go for it on 4th down, this time, and they lost a win probability of this and this in this game. I'm saying, what? Who's looking at this? So I emailed the company and said, like, who are you guys and what are you doing? Because I'm just doing this off the seat of my pants and with data from my games, but who are you? So the company calls me up. This guy, Anthony Jones, he's like the vice president or something. He's like, man, this is the future. You got to see this tool. He demos the tool for me, and he said, I'm going to give you the tool for free. Break the tool, figure out everything that's wrong with it, mess around with it. So I start playing Madden with the tool and really figuring out what things I think could be added to the tool or how the tool could be improved. Then he said to me, look, what high school are you coaching at right now? I want you to use it with your team this year. I said, look, man, I don't have a high school. I was coaching at a high school. I got fired from that high school. I got nowhere to coach. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're not coaching high school football, but you care this much about a tool. There's something wrong with you, man. I said, look, I'm obsessed with this data. I'm totally obsessed with it because I had been doing it the old school method of pen, paper, an Excel spreadsheet, some programs that I had, but it was painful. It was painful to look at, painful to convince people of. So that's how I got introduced to this tool. And then from there, it kind of just took off where that head coach said, hey, let's experiment with it at Matter Day Prep.
Wow, damn. Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, it's such a great tool. Like, I kind of want to look at it, experience it one day.
Yeah, it's
like just to be in the, not even like just to see in the booth, like what it's like when you're sitting mid game and it's like, boom, like this is what.
Is it a thing that we could actually show on the screen right now? I have the tool open. If it's like I just share my screen and show it, or is that completely?
Yeah, I believe you could hold on, let me see.
Yeah, I think it'll allow him to share his screen.
Hold on. All right, yeah. Who can share? Go ahead. Yeah, I think it should be good.
All right. So to the people just listening, bear with me. I will do my best to explain what is happening on the screen so you're
If you're
not
listening,
freaking out.
Go to YouTube.
All right. You guys can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
All right. So this is like I said, everything's about relativity. So people just listening, it's all about what you think your offense and defense is in relation to the other team's offense and defense. Because people, all the naysayers are going to say, oh, that's great. Your tool's awesome. But what if your quarterback breaks his leg in the second quarter? Then what do you do? Right. So this tool allows you to change that. So for example, if you said, look, I have a strong advantage in the passing game over their defense. Okay. And then your quarterback breaks his leg. Well, you can change that advantage from a strong advantage to a strong disadvantage if your backup quarterback is like a backup running back that you stick in there. So this is the tool that allows you to input all this information during the game. Maybe you say, look, the weather's going to change, coach. Don't tell me your field goal kicker can kick a 45-yard field goal. Maybe the wind is blowing 50 miles an hour in one direction. What do you do? Well, I will change his field goal range at each half. And these are things that we actually did do during the game. Or if you scout a team and you think you're way better than them, and then they bring in 3 ringers for that game, and now the advantage is completely changed. Again, this is what you put in before the game, and then you adjust it during the game. So what I'm able to do during the game then is I'm able to, if you guys are, again, looking at the screen, I just put in whatever the exact scenario is. So say we are up 7-0 over this team. It is the second quarter with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, and we have the ball on our own 45-yard line. All right. I click this update button. It's going to compile all this information. Now, hopefully your Wi-Fi connection is pretty good. So we've had some situations where the coach is going, Coach Mahoney, like, tell me what to do here. And I'm clicking the button. But if you guys are looking at my screen, you're going to see it tells you. Now it's first down that I plug this in, but this is telling me, hey, on anything less than 4th and 6, it's green, we go. So at the start of that drive, I'm telling that offensive coordinator, okay, man, it's 1st and 10. If we get to 4th and 6, we're going. So now he can call all of his plays knowing we got to get to 4th and 6. And if we get to 4th and 6, we go. So now you may say, coach, listen, I'm not as crazy as you are, right? Like, you've been fired for doing things like this. Let's tone this down a little bit. So what we did at Matter Day, as we dipped our toe in the water, he had said, look, I'm not going to go for anything that's below 6%. So in this scenario, our best probability was 4% differential in win probability on 4th and 1. So for what you guys looking at the screen, we probably wouldn't have went for it. But as we got better and he believed in it more, he said 3%. So again, as I'm talking to that coach, now I'm only telling him, look, hey, if it's 4th and 1, we're going, because it's above that 3% range. But that number is right here. That's the difference between winning if you go for it or don't go for it on 4th down. So this is legitimately the tool. It's that simple to use.
That's really interesting, actually. Like the way it just like one click of a button, you got all that at your fingertips.
Yeah. Now I'll show you one more thing, because this is another hot topic amongst football coaches, is going for 2 or not. And it doesn't make, let me make this number. Let's say we're up 6-0, right? We're up 6-0. This is going to tell me that we should go for 2 if we score, right? This is going to tell me we should go for 2. So these are things that I need to think about before the drive even starts. Because that coach, you can't just wait till you score and say, what are we doing? Going for 1 or going for 2? You need to know this stuff. So as we're getting the kickoff return, I'm telling the coaching staff, guys, if we score on this drive, we're going for 2. Everybody understand? Yes. Okay. So have that go for 2 plan in your back pocket. So this is the type of thing that we're doing. Now, nobody can see this but me during the game, but I'm the guy in the booth trying to do this stuff. And the other thing to realize is, again, as a football coach, it's hard to not get emotional about these topics, right? It's hard to not have a vested interest in everything going on. So people say, what type of person needs to do this? It's almost a person who can emotionally remove themselves from the game and think about it you're basically a translator. You're a translator between the data in this tool and the highly emotional group of grown men coaching down on the field, right? These are intellectual men. They're grown men. They've dedicated their whole life. They're sacrificing time from their families on all these play calls. You can't come in and throw paint on their Mona Lisa. You got to really be careful about the way you breach these conversations with them so it doesn't screw them up and so that they don't throw you off the top of the booth.
Damn, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, but.
And I'm going to show you guys that one other thing, that post-game report. And this is just like every one of these dots is every play of the game. As it goes up, your win probability goes up. And as it goes down, your win probability goes down. So what that detailed report is going to say, look, these are all the good calls you made. These are all the bad calls you made. And then this is every play that had some sort of significant win-loss probability over the course of the game. So, oh my God, that sack killed us. Like you could look at certain plays and tell a kid, you didn't know this at that moment, but you jumping off sides cost us 15% win probability. You never know the play when it's going to matter the most.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. I'm just in awe of like how much information is
Yeah.
like.
Yeah,
like,
and guys, too much information is bad. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said I'm probably stuttering. I don't know, but I'm just reading I'm just so into like the light go off in the basement. There we go. But oh yeah, wow.
So you got to think about the too much information is bad information. So it's how do you simplify this message during a game? Now, this stuff we're not looking at. We're looking at this during a game. But again, it's overly simplistic. 4th and 2, we go. Bang. Now, for me, I put incredible pressure on myself, probably more than is necessary. But I practiced in Madden a lot because I didn't want to get to the game for this team that I'm not really a coach on the staff. I'm just a guy that just shows up and then blow it for them by clicking the wrong button or screwing up. If there's ways you can say who has the ball. What if I have the wrong team with the ball? Now I've changed win probability all of a sudden. So I practiced this a lot, and I put it on an accelerated mode in Madden so that I could really put myself in a worse situation in Madden than you would in a real game. And Madden's tough. There's no like huddle. They just snap the ball over and over again. So if you can do it in Madden, then you can do it in real life.
Yeah. But I mean, I know Rob's next question, Rob, you want to shoot for it? Has to do with, I know, because I'm not the only person who thinks this is like crazy interesting.
Yeah. So when people hear analytics, they automatically think baseball, and they think like spin rate and launch angle and all this other stuff. There's a debate there whether it's the way to go too. But do you think we'll get to that point in football where like it's just going to be completely dominated by analytics? Like the Tampa Bay Rays don't look at anything but the computer. You're pulling Blake Snell in Game 6 of the World Series because you don't want him to face the lineup and he's dealing, and because you don't want to see him have a hitter see him the third time. Like, is it going to get like that? And the way they scout these guys too. Do you think scouting is going to completely change with analytics?
I think let me say this. It's going to shift further toward analytics in football. So if you think about baseball, this has been over, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating here, but maybe over 100 years in the making of trying to use analytics to get baseball to where it is now. So I went to this sports data analytics conference at MIT, and they had the quote unquote godfather of baseball analytics, Bill James. So if you guys have watched Moneyball, you had Billy Beane, Brad Pitt. He was supposed to be the first guy that brought this into the major leagues. He really wasn't. His boss was a guy who had thought about this stuff, and his boss had read the work of Bill James, and then Bill James had read the work of some other guy, right? So they've been trying for years and years and years to get analytics into sports, and everybody just completely denied it. I think baseball's come much further along than football. Basketball is coming along. Football is the slowest. Football will eventually get there, but I don't think it's going to get to the point soon where people are just looking at a computer. But you do hear rumors that certain NFL coaches are having issues because they're being told what play to call. Like this tool, if you remember looking at the screen, it just said run or pass. It didn't say, hey, you're going to run 24 power or you're going to run a fade route. It just said throw the ball or pass the ball. There's some analytics out there telling people exactly what play to call, and now it takes the human element out of it. I also think that you got a lot of coaches, and I agree with them, that there is an art to coaching. There is an art of coaching. Football's got 11 people that you need to choreograph every single thing they're doing. In baseball, people call it more of an individual sport. We can debate that all day if you'd like to, but I think it's a little harder to get to that point. But I do think that analytics is moving closer to where baseball is than it was. And it's getting there quickly because now there's a lot more eyes on fourth down decisions, going for it for two. There's a lot of NFL teams doing more and more of that, college teams too.
Do you think it'll ever get to a point where, like, when you're scouting a quarterback, they pick up something like a spin rate on the football? That might disqualify somebody from, like, or someone would be like, I don't want to draft him because I don't like his spin rate, or like a running back, he doesn't use enough. I'm not even sure like what kind of stats would even come out.
Yeah, I could see miles per hour running 100%. Like how
Yeah.
fast, what's this guy's acceleration going from 0 to 5? I mean, they're already kind of doing it with a 40-yard dash in their pro agility test. But to your point, I'm thinking about hitting a baseball. I was trying to think like, what's the closest connection? Because I was reading the MVP machine and Trevor Bauer and all this insanity that goes on at the very second of it. But I think one of the closest things, one of the most skilled positions in football that people don't really care about too much, except where they lose a game for you, is a kicker, right? So I'm thinking about the same way a guy swings a baseball, hits a ball, this kicker, what is his launch angle of the kick? Like what is the speed of the trajectory of his leg as he's kicking the ball? Does it change on a certain type of a field goal or a punt, a directional punt? So I think that could be a way, if it's not being done already, where you could use that type of analytics to perfect someone's mechanics. Because I think baseball's gotten there where they're using data to perfect mechanics. That's why that book is called MVP Machine. They're using data to manufacture MVPs. With football, maybe quarterback, maybe kicker. Those are two positions that I'd quote unquote say skilled because they're involving a football. I know there's a lot of other skilled positions out there, but maybe a snapper, the same deal. I could see it happening. I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to see it happen because right now when I coach guys, I don't have that information, but I am starting to use slow motion. So at Matter Day Prep, I was also their kicking coach. So I would use slow motion photography like they do in MVP Machine to slow motion, like super slow motion, watch how the kicker was kicking. Hey man, your plant leg is not straight. We're able to have those type of conversations, or your foot is not hitting the right spot as you're about to kick the ball. So we could see it in super slow motion. And now this kid's awesome. He's taking super slow motion of himself and sending it to me. We're kind of doing virtual coaching because now he's obsessed with the information that he's getting. I just don't have data about, the flight angle of the ball off his foot, but I would love to get there.
Yeah. Hey, listen, at least someone's giving love to the kickers finally.
Gotta love him, man. Gotta love him, Kev.
For the brand, baby. My next question, we kind of jumping off, not really, but had a New York Times. How'd you get yourself wrapped up in that?
So it links back to this Edge Varsity company. So Edge Varsity, when I first talked to that guy, he's telling me, look, I used to work for the Eagles with Andy Reid, and then Doug Peterson was a big fan of this tool. The New York Times had written an article on Doug Peterson the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It pains me to say the Eagles won the Super Bowl, but they did win the Super Bowl. Having said that, they were using this tool, but they were using it in preparation. So the author of that article reached out to that guy, Anthony Jones, and said, look, I want to do an article on high school football. Do you know anybody? And he said, yeah, I got a guy. And the reason I talked about me getting fired before is he said, this guy got fired. He's now using the tool. He pulled a McCarthy and spent the whole offseason with the staff, which we did. Our staff was working a lot since we got fired at getting better at our craft. Guys like Steve Roman, Jimmy Yuski, Joe Marenchko were working on this stuff. And he said, talk to this guy because now he's experimenting with this tool. So this guy calls me. I've never even done it in a game yet. My only experience is with Madden. So I told the guy, I don't know what you should expect. I might stink. The tool might not work, but I won a couple of Madden games using the tool. But this guy, Ben Spiegel, he was one of the most thorough professional people I've ever dealt with in my life. He shadowed us virtually, physically. He was probably around us for a month and a half. And he really wanted to know. He had a vested interest in not just seeing what we were doing was working, but also the behavioral and cultural sides behind it. So you could see in the quality of his article, he did all of his homework, and we still talk now. I still include him on when we find new data stuff because he has a vested interest in it. I include him in it on as well.
That's awesome. So
does the tool?
Go ahead, Rob.
Does the tool tell you to put an Nate Sudfeld at the end of the game to get a higher draft pick, or is it? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, was that an analytic move? Like, was that like was that the excuse we used?
You had to be throwing a game for a draft pick. Like, there's no other explanation.
I'm pleading the fifth on that, man. I do not know enough about it.
I got him fired.
So, Coach, what exactly are your thoughts on going on it fourth? Whoa, got a little tongue twister there. Going for it on fourth down. So you guys know at C, a lot of times we didn't go for it on fourth down. I'm a big fan of not going for it on fourth down. It's a controversial decision, especially where you're coaching, where you are on the field, what the score is. I'll tell you my reasons why. First of all, I'll say this tool makes it a lot easier. It gives you a data-driven perspective on when you should or shouldn't go for it on fourth down. Having said that, my personal beliefs are it puts the other team in a bad spot if you convert and you keep the ball. If you punt, it's a turnover. Whether you like it or not, it's a turnover. It's the same thing as a long interception, right? It's a turnover.
think about putting in a punt team. No offense to you as a kicker, but a punt team, I was a special teams coach for a long time. It takes a long time to teach somebody how to long snap, how to teach these guys to block, how to teach these guys to block the right guy. Then after they block, to go run down the field and go tackle somebody who caught the punt. And then it's also difficult to teach a punter how to punt the right way. So we're looking at the net yardage on a punt in high school might be 20 yards. It's not the NFL where it might be 40 to 45 yards. We're gaining 20 yards for what? And if you're gaining, they're kicking out of your own end zone and you give them the ball at their 30-yard line or their 25-yard line, they're going to score anyway. So it looks stupid if you don't punt, especially if you don't get it. But for me, it wasn't worth the time or the effort to punt all that much. So for me, I'm a big fan of not punting. Now this tool has given me a reason and an educated decision on when to and when not to punt.
All right. How about going for two?
Going for two, I think it's the same thing. So I've talked to people that are far smarter than me. So when I got introduced to this tool, and I guess this is a good learning lesson for anybody in anything. If you're going to do something, go find the people that do it the best. So that guy, AJ, I said to him, look, hook me up with the 3 best high school coaches that use this tool. So I interviewed them, asked them, who uses the tool? Where are they sitting? What are they doing during the game? What's their week look like? And one of the guys I talked to, I had heard him on a podcast talking about this very same thing, going for two. And he said he likes to go for two for one main reason. It throws the other team off their game. So imagine you're playing a team that has a great extra point kicker and they kick an extra point every time. You get the ball first, you go down, you score, it's 8-0. Now what do? Do they all of a sudden become a 2-point team? You're in that guy's head. So let's say they don't. Now it's 8-7. They come down, they score, it's 8-7. You score again, you go for two, you get it. Now it's 16-7. Now what? Right? So now you've completely changed the game. Now, if you're dealing in probabilities, I don't want to talk too much about math, but let's just say it's a 50-50 shot, right? You get it half the time. So if I get it the first time, it's 8-0. If I miss it the second time, it's 14-0. Okay, so now we're back to square one. So what was really the risk in going for two? And Kevin, back to my other point, again, I love kickers. I'm a special teams coach, but it's not easy to teach a long snap, a hold, a kick, at a high school level.
A lot of high schools, they don't punt. They don't have the extra points because no one really knows how to kick. And it's
hard to find one.
Not even that.
Sometimes passing the ball is tough in high school.
Yeah, like
throwing a pass is tough. Like you gotta have protection, you gotta have the quarterback drop back, not fall down, then throw it to a guy who's got to be at a spot. He has to run his route, not fall down. Like
my senior year of high school, we had the tight end as the punter. So it was like guy would pump it 15, 20 yards, and that was it.
Yeah, to me, I would like to reduce complexity in the game. It's part of why I started looking at data to begin with. Now, do I saying go for two every single time? No, but there are times where a lot of times we should go for two. Again, this tool is hyper aggressive. If you look at this tool, so many times it tells you to go for two. Now, you guys may not be aware, but there's been football charts passed down from father to son, grandfather to grandson, and it's a chart that tells you when to go for two or when to go for one, based on the differential in points. That tool is 100 times more conservative than the tool that we're looking at from Edge Varsity. Edge Varsity, it almost always wants you to go for two, again, depending on the scenario, but it's telling you to go for two a heck of a lot more than going for one. Now, again, I'm new to this coaching staff. I didn't tell that guy to go for two every single time. I only did it when there was a glaring difference. And there was a game I had to tell him to go for two 3 times. And it was a crazy back and forth game against the best team we were going to play that year. We won the game by a hook and ladder, like a crazy play. And it was a highly emotional situation. We went back and validated that we had to go for two. But even in that time, it was like, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Are you sure you're sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Because it is such a non-traditional thing to do in a normal football game.
Yeah, it's crazy because you think like, computers are now telling you what to do. It's like, do I trust it? And so some people it takes really convincing to get on board.
I would imagine the NFL pushing back the extra point helps the argument to go for two all the time, or a lot more.
Yeah, Rob, I think you're seeing more missed extra points. You're right, because that company, they do a great job. So Edge Varsity, after every week in the NFL, they will highlight certain things and they'll highlight certain games. And a couple of times they were talking about why a team started going for two in the middle of a game. I think it was the Cleveland Browns who did it early. And you're like, well, why would they do that? Well, this guy, the kicker, had missed a bunch of extra points over the course of the season. Now it makes that decision a little bit easier. I think that the goalposts are a little closer than they used to be, and they moved it back further. Yeah. So I agree with you. And if they move it back ever again, I'm sure we're going to see a lot more 2-point conversions.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was 1 week this year or last year with extra points was a massacre. Like no one could hit one. Any team, no. They were like, we have another missed one, another missed one. So that's, I guess, where the 2 points come in. So now, Coach, I just have one last question, and then I guess, Rob, I don't know if you have any more, but
Yeah,
have
I
you
got
seen a
I got a couple.
recipe for scoring with this tool you use? And
I'm sorry, Kev. I missed what you were saying.
oh, Rob was talking over us. Have you seen like a recipe for scoring? And how would you advise a team to manage the game, or maybe practice differently? Like, would you?
So let's talk through the recipe for scoring. And you're going to say, Coach, this is the most boring information in the whole world. Why are you telling me this? But you might say, Coach, what's the recipe for getting a six pack? And I would say, you got to sleep 8 hours a night. You got to drink this many ounces of water a day. You can't eat processed foods. And you're going to say, Coach, that's the most boring thing in the world. But it's the truth, right? So what I'm going to tell you is going to sound boring, but how it's going to be how do people actually do stuff with it. So there's 5 ways that you're going to score. And I'm just clicking up this on my own little thing. I got a picture of those 5 ways ready to just trigger myself for these conversations. But if you want to score when you have the ball, there's a couple of things you got to do. One, you can't have offensive penalties. So if you get an offensive penalty, it's pretty much over. If you get an offensive penalty, at least from the data that we had, and I'm going to try and do my best to not spit out numbers at you guys, but if you get an offensive penalty on a drive in high school football, you're not going to score. I'll just keep it that simple. Am I over exaggerating? Yes. It's not 100% of the time, but almost always you're not going to score with an offensive penalty. So how should you practice differently? In practice, if a guy is either holding or a false start, those are the 2 big ones for us. If that happened, we never scored once if there was a holding or a false start. You got to lose your mind as a coach. You got to go crazy to the point like guys do not want to go have a false start or have any holding penalties. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, this one is going to sound a little weird, but it's the first play of an offensive drive. So you get the kickoff or you get a punt or they turn it over on downs. Your first play of an offensive drive. If you get 3 yards or more, you're almost always going to score on that drive. I'll say that again. And this is high school football. If you get 3 yards or more, you're almost always going to score on that drive. Now, why did I start looking at this? Bill Walsh, and I think it's The Winning Edge, great book. It's like the Bible of becoming a football coach. He had said in the NFL, if you get 4 yards or more on your first play of an offensive drive, you're going to score. We figured out for high school it was 3. So how do you practice that? Well, what we did when I was a head coach is we would say, okay, first offense, while you remember set the tone, we did at C. Mm-hmm. We would do that, except we'd say if you have to get 3 yards. So it's best of 7 starting offense versus starting defense. You got to get 3 yards. Loser doesn't eat or eats lunch second during camp. Something like that.
Doesn't eat lunch. No.
Coach doesn't eat ever again.
You don't eat until you get home. 2 days. You cannot eat until you get home.
So that was thing number 2. Thing number 3 was you need a big play. Now, that sounds simplistic. Well, big plays win games. But I think the trick is, what's a big play, right? So we kept it simple. A big play for us was over 15 yards. So somebody said to me, well, why don't you just throw bombs every play? It's probably worth the risk. So I tried it in Madden and got completely blown out. I don't recommend throwing a bomb. And we dug through the data. 15 yards doesn't mean you threw the ball 15 yards. It doesn't mean throw the ball every play. It just means get your players in space enough, either vertically or horizontally, so that they have room to run and force missed tackles, and they can manufacture a 15-yard play. Imagine I throw a bubble route to the best wide receiver on earth who's got space. He's going to juke 11 guys and get 15 yards on the play. So figure out what plays you're really good at and then manufacture big plays out of those plays. Wow. Okay. Thing number 4 is to dominate 4th down conversions. Remember what I said before, punting the ball is a turnover. I think if you change your mindset to believe that punting a ball is a turnover, it's going to change the way you coach on offense. When you think about a guy like Kevin Kelly, that guy from Arkansas who never punts and always onside kicks, he looks at punting as an offensive failure, and I believe he's completely right. Now, if you watch people, broadcasters in the NFL, a lot of times before we got into data analytics was, no, it's the right move. You punt them, you pin them. No, you're failing if you failed. You're giving the ball back to the other team. They can't win if they can't score. They can't score if they can't get the ball. So keep that ball on 4th down. So how do you practice that? You do the same thing. You have a set the tone drill. it's 4th and 3, best of 7, let's go. Even better, it's 3rd and 8. You got 2 downs to get a first down, best of 7, let's go. And then the last thing, this is big, and Rob, you know this from having played under me, it's turnovers. So that, again, turnovers win games, but how many days a week does your team work on turnovers? How many minutes of your practice does your team work on turnovers? If another offense gains 15 yards, they make this big play, but you come over and rip the ball out of their hand, who cares, right? To me, keeping that football, forcing a turnover, it's way bigger than any scheme you're going to have. But again, how many seconds of your day are you working on that stuff? So those were the big 5. Again, they sound overly simplistic. I'm sure every football coach in America has thought of these things. It's just a matter of what are you going to do to execute on those thoughts?
Now, I mean, my next question was going to be, now that you mentioned schemes, does the analytics support any different scheme, like air raid versus like the ground and pound, or a 3-4 versus a 4-3? But from what I'm understanding, the scheme doesn't matter as much.
The scheme won't matter as much. I think it does support pace, though. Pace of, I'll say this, I'll go back to having the ball. It supports pace on where you are in the game. Meaning, if you're winning the game, why are you speeding up your plays so much? Slow down the clock and don't let them have the ball. You know, we figured out that like just having the ball for a solid 6 minutes in one game, it was the equivalent of scoring a touchdown. We didn't score a touchdown. We didn't change field position. If you just ran 6 minutes off the clock, same exact field position, they simulated it in the tool, it improved your win probability as much as scoring a touchdown, which is insane. So you gained a touchdown by doing nothing, by eating up the clock.
Wow. All right. And I know, Rob, you got one more dish out, right?
Yeah, are we going to bring analytics to advanced training? Are we really going to break down what we're doing at any point here?
I think first of all, we do a little bit. If you remember,
yeah.
we have the sliders, we have the feed cats on the sliders, but we break down during our tough man every event. So every transition time, how long does it take you to get from a slider to the farmer's walk? So we've brought analytics into it that way. I'd say that we have guys maybe over analyzing stuff, which is good and bad in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would love to have a tool that tells guys to decide whether to pick up the farmer's walk with their left hand, their right hand, or both hands. That'd be pretty sick. Or how to spin around that prowler. But Wallen, if you're offering, I will gladly give you that stopwatch and do some slow motion film.
Sounds good.
Wild. Maybe one day we'll have that. Maybe one day. Coach, we appreciate you coming on. As always, it's been fun. You got anything else to add to the listeners?
No, guys, this is a great conversation. I'm glad we talked about it. Rob, I know you played under me a long time ago, but maybe this is starting to connect some dots for the why behind what we did back then and how we're moving forward now.
Oh yeah, like it was all about knowing how to recover a fumble. Like a lot of time, like that was just, we had like 5 to 8 minutes in an indie period of just diving on a football and just knowing how to secure a fumble, which is really important.
So both of you guys, I got to ask you this
question.
question.
Seems easy, but like, you know.
Yeah, you don't think about it, right? You'll jump on a ball and it'll flip all over the place because you're not jumping in the fetal position and covering it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess a reverse question for you guys is, when you were playing, I don't remember if I did this when I coached you guys. Did we talk about we're looking at these 5 plays because it was 80% of their yardage? Did we A, talk about it, and B, did you even care about it? Did it matter to you as a player, or you just want to go play?
I do remember us talking about, like, especially in film, like they like to come out with this, or they like, for example, when we played Trinity, they really like that post on the goal line. They run this all the time, so look out for it. To that kid who went to like South Alabama or wherever he went. And the turnovers, like I already said, we stress that. But it does help as long as you don't like really like flood like a high school kid's mind with it. Because if he's thinking and he's not running around, it makes it tougher.
Yeah, Rob, I agree with you with that. Like, flood too much information in such a young mind just gets them riled up. Just most of the time, just let them play their game. But you have to add that information, but not too much to overwhelm and get them thinking like, all right, if I don't do it this right way, I'm done. You know what I mean? So
this is good. Any other advice for a football coach towards his players?
Let me think. Yeah, just don't flood the mind. Let them play their game, and then, yeah, I mean, like you say, I agree with you. The offside stuff and how it's analytic, you got to get on them like that. But besides that, it's to all the advice I can give.
All right, man. Thank you very much. And thank you again for having me on. This is a topic I can talk about every day of my life.
I mean, maybe I would think maybe from just one thing is like if you have one guy that understands it a little bit more than, I mean, this is what you normally do anyway. But like if you have like a defensive captain out there, like know who that guy is, and then give him more information. Like I saw something today about Antonio Pierce, how he was the captain of that defense of the Giants. He obviously we now definitely know he has a higher understanding of what's going on because he's going to be coaching the defense at Arizona State. So he was always destined for great things when it came to knowing more than the guys around.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The captain spot is the man who can stand, the man who has it and can get the guys. Like, I get it. Like, give him the information and let him basically not dumb it down, but like get it to them so they understand more, and it's not too much. You know what I mean?
Like Tom Brady's running up there barking up orders, and he's like Pierce is like running. He would be like, no check, no, like, and everybody else like looking at him like, okay, and then they ran the play.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like look at him. Just that's the captain. That's the guy. It's like, all right, what are we doing? You understand this. No one else does.
So, Rob, I'm picturing your senior year defense, and I'm picturing, I won't say any names, but maybe one guy at linebacker, you could tell him everything, and one guy at linebacker, you just tell him, go blow up the fullback.
Yeah.
And you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I might have an idea who you're talking about, but I'm not going to say. But, Coach, again, appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon.